G'day viewers, it's Alex from the NIA support team. This video is on how to update your iAiming on Android Cellular. We've made this video to hopefully better explain the process and simplify it for our viewers. The process is risk-free and will bring the latest features and improvements to your device. Before we get started, there's a few things you'll need to do. First of all, you'll want to back up all your trigger footage off the iAiming scope and then ensure you have fully charged it. You'll then want to download the latest iAiming app on your relevant device and ensure that you have a good mobile network signal. First up, you will need to get your iAiming's Wi-Fi details. To do this, grab your scope and go into the menu using the dial. Scrolling through the menu, you will see a Wi-Fi icon. Select this and turn it to on. Once it is selected to on, tap the button again and you will have now turned your scope's Wi-Fi on. You can then get out of the menu by holding the button down for a second. You will then need to clarify the scope's Wi-Fi password. To do this, go back into the menu, scroll down to the second page, click the setting icon, and then you will see an option shown that will show your scope's Wi-Fi password. In this case, my password is the default, which is 87654321. If you select this, you can go through and change these numbers if you have a preferred password. Once completed, hold the button for a second to get out of the menu, and you'll have to do this again to get out of the second menu. Now that we have your scope's Wi-Fi information, we want to connect your device to the scope. So to do this, we want to go into your device's settings. In this case, they're here. And then into connections, Wi-Fi, and here we see our iAiming 317 scope. So we'll click on that. In my case, the password was the default, which is 87654321. And I'll now hit connect. In this case, this device has let us know that there's no internet available on the iAiming. This is normal as the iAiming cannot provide internet. We are connecting to it for update purposes. So if you see a screen like this on your device, just hit always connect. Now that we're connected, we can go into the main screen and into the iAiming app. When we open the iAiming app, it will be in landscape. It does not work on portrait, so we will rotate the phone. On some phones, you'll be able to go into the settings in a landscape mode as well. Some you may have to rotate the device. So now we can see our iAiming in the app here, showing as connected. If you do not see your device there, you can hit refresh or connect. If these two buttons still do not allow you to see your device, I'd recommend going back and confirming you're connected via wireless and reopening the app. We're going to select the iAiming 317. On this screen, we can see a bit of information about the scope. We have the model details, the serial number, hardware and software versions, and various firmwares. In this case, you'll note that these two firmwares at the bottom are not showing a number, and this will change once we update them. So now we're going to go to firmware update. In the firmware update screen, we have three options. We have FPGA and ARM firmware. These two firmwares are basically for devices within the scope, and they do not ultimately affect the user experience. Soft firmware is where more notable changes could be found. Generally, this is where most improvements will be seen in the scope. It is, however, necessary to update these other two firmwares prior to updating the soft firmware. So we're going to start by updating the FPGA firmware. So once you go into this screen, the scope will inform you to disconnect the Wi-Fi and check for the latest firmware version. So to do this, we just need to turn the Wi-Fi off on the device. So in our case, we're going to go back to the main screen, open up the settings, go to our connections, and just simply turn the Wi-Fi off. Now that the Wi-Fi is off, we'll go back to the home screen, back into our iAiming, and hit check latest version. So now we can see there's a new version found, and we'll go ahead and download that. While the firmware is downloading, it's also very important that we now select our scope's zoom to its highest setting. This is always a good idea as it prevents issues with updates. If you do not do this, the update may hang and you may have to restart the scope. This will not hurt the scope, but the update will not complete. So it is best to always ensure you've just set the magnification straight to its maximum, and that way you shouldn't have any issues. So now we can see the update has downloaded and it's asking us to connect the Wi-Fi. So once again, now we need to connect the scope back to the device. So we'll go back into our connections via the settings and turn our Wi-Fi back on. Now in some cases this will connect straight back to your scope, in some cases it may not. In ours it has. If it does not, just go in and find your scope in the list. So now we will go back into the iAiming app and hit update now. We can see on our device now that the update is complete. So what we'll do now is go ahead and click the confirm and exit button and restart the iAiming. So to do this, we just hold the power button down for 3 seconds like we would normally to turn it off, and then turn it straight back on. Now that the iAiming's back on, we'll scroll down to the Wi-Fi symbol and turn the Wi-Fi back on as we did just before the update. Once that's on, you can get out the menu and put your scope down. We're ready to connect it back to the device. So to do that, we'll go straight back into the settings, go into our connections, Wi-Fi, and in this case our device has found it automatically and is already connecting to it. We're now connected, so we're going to go back to the home screen and back into the iAiming app. The iAiming app will be back to where it started when we first opened it, and we just need to select our scope once again, go into the firmware update menu, and now we will do the ARM firmware update. So we're back to where we have to check the version. So we just need to disconnect our scope so that the device has internet. So we'll go back to our main screen, back into settings, back into Wi-Fi, and just turn Wi-Fi off. Now we'll go back to the main screen with Wi-Fi off, back into the iAiming app and hit check latest version. As we can see, an update has been found, so we're going to click download new firmware. Once again, this is a good time to pick up your scope and just set that magnification to its highest setting. We've now done that, so we can connect our device back to our scope and then send the update through. So we'll go back to our home screen, back into settings, back into connections, and turn Wi-Fi on. Once again, this one has automatically connected back to my device, but if not, just go in, find your device in the list, and you'll be good to go. So now we're going to go back into iAiming and hit update now. One thing to note with these updates is you will get different feedback off the scopes for different updates. It's best just to look at the device and basically go off that for update information. Once it's complete, it will tell you. In this case, it has quite quickly, but just look at that. If it's been an extended period of time and you're getting nowhere, say over 10 minutes, you may have an update that's hanging. I'd check the zoom function and then perhaps reattempt the update. As we are all up to date now, I'm going to hit confirm and exit. And now we can restart the scope once again. With the scope restarted, we'll now go back in and turn the Wi-Fi on once again. So down to the Wi-Fi symbol, select it, turn it back to on, out of the menu in the scope, and we're good to go. So we'll now connect the device back to the scope via settings, connections, and it should connect automatically. If not, just go in this list. In this case, ours has just connected, but once again, you can always find your device in the list if you need to. You may find that it connects to your home network. We'll go back to the main screen now, back into iAiming. We'll be back at the start as before. Select our scope. Now before we proceed, you will notice that we now have versions for this FPGA and ARM on screen. That's because we've updated them. And that's a good thing to see. So we're ready to put the software update on now. So we'll go straight into firmware update, hit soft firmware update, and check for the latest version. So before we can do that though, we need to turn the Wi-Fi off once again. So back to the main screen, back into settings, back into our connections, and just turn the Wi-Fi off. So now the Wi-Fi is off, we'll go back into the iAiming app via the main screen, and hit check latest version. Now we can see that there's an update available for this one, so we'll go ahead and download that. And once again, while it's downloading, make sure that we have that zoom set to its absolute maximum so we have no issues with the update. The update is now downloaded. So we'll go straight back in and turn the Wi-Fi on. So out of the app, back into settings, back into the connections, turn the Wi-Fi on, and our scope has reconnected. So we'll go back to the main screen, back into iAiming, and hit update now. We've now completed the update for the soft, so now we can go ahead and click confirm and exit, and reboot the scope. Your iAiming scope should now be updated. So from here, you should be good to use it. But if you want to check that the update has gone on, you can do this in the app. So in this case, we've connected it as we saw before in the video, and we're just going to have a quick look. So we'll click on iAiming, and we can see our version numbers there. In this case, we've taken the software to 2.3.1, and that's the latest firmware as of the time of making this video. Now I'll just show one extra thing. If we go into firmware update and go through the process as we had before, you will see when I click check latest version, it'll just have a pop-up come up in a moment saying latest version now. This is what you would see if your scope was already up to date. And if you see that, you can go back using the little arrow up here and check the next software version. So you don't need to disconnect and reconnect your scope. You can just simply check the next one. If they're all up to date, then there's no updating to do. I hope this video has helped you update your device. Don't be afraid to have a go with this. It's a very simple process, and if there are issues, it's very unlikely you can harm the device. If you do encounter issues doing this, don't hesitate to contact NIA or your local dealer. Thank you for watching.